Welcome to our 5 on 5. I'm pleased to be joined today by Kathy Stokes, the Director of Fraud Prevention Programs for AARP, with us from Washington, D.C. Kathy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So AARP has a free resource called the Fraud Watch Network. What exactly is that?
Well, it's actually a national educational movement. We do a lot of things online, but we're also out around the country in communities with a message of scams and fraud prevention. And as part of that, we have the AARP Fraud Watch Network online at aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. And it's really an invaluable resource for consumers of all ages. And you don't have to be an AARP member to access this stuff. You can find useful information to stay safe from scams and fraud. We have we call it a fraud resource center that has more than 50 tip sheets on specific scams. We have a place where you can sign up for our bi-weekly watchdog alert emails to learn about specific scams. We have a scam tracking map. It's kind of like a heat map approach that shows scams as they're reported by consumers by geography. We also have there our hit podcast. It's called The Perfect Scam, and we have fascinating guests and information that really peels back the curtain on a whole wide array of schemes.
Wow, yeah, that is available, as you mentioned, for everybody, free whether they're AARP members or not. Do you know what specifically AARP is doing here in Oregon?
Yeah, our state office there in Oregon is doing some really great work with the Oregon Department of Justice, the Securities Regulator, and the Federal Trade Commission. They do in-person events they call Scam Jams, and we also have dedicated volunteer teams that are around the community doing presentations. And in March, the state office is holding a telephone town hall with Attorney General Rosenblum on Real ID and the scams that are already popping up as a result of the new identification that we all need to be able to board commercial airline flights.
Yeah, that deadline is approaching. So we often hear fraud goes unreported. Why is that?
Well, it does. And I think a major impediment is the shame people end up feeling when they fall victim to a scam. And they feel that shame because we ourselves, we use victim shaming language, right? In our everyday parlance, we say, she fell for it, or he was duped. And it puts the responsibility on the victim for having fallen victim. And what we need to do is change the way we talk about fraud victims and put the responsibility where it belongs, on the criminals that are doing these egregious things. So by reporting and sharing our stories, we can help the next target from becoming the next victim. So we do encourage reporting, absolutely, but there's also confusion around who to report to. And I know in Oregon, consumers can contact the Attorney General's fraud hotline. That number is 877-9392, and they can always call the AARP Fraud Watch Network helpline for guidance. And again, it's members, non-members, it doesn't matter what age you are. If you need help or you have a question, 1-877-908-3360.
Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll have much more with Kathy in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. I'm joined today by Kathy Stokes, the Director of Fraud Prevention Programs for AARP, with us from Washington, D.C. Kathy, what can you tell us about imposter scams?
Well, we know that one of the hottest scams is somebody pretending to be someone that they're not. So, for example, you may get a phone call from someone who claims to be with a federal government agency like the Internal Revenue Service or the Social Security Administration. And we've heard of scammers pretending to be from your county court, claiming you missed jury duty and have to pay a fine. We also know that imposters lurk on social media and on dating sites, and they try to lure targets into a relationship with the ultimate goal of not a relationship, but of stealing their money or their personal information.
Certainly with the census going on, there's a lot of talk about government agencies reaching out. How can we really tell if it is a government agency reaching out to us?
Well, in most cases, you're not going to hear from a government agency by phone unless you have existing business with them and you're expecting them to call you. And you can't rely on caller ID because scammers can fake that information that shows up and make it look like it's the Social Security Administration or the IRS. And we also know that the most common form of contact in government scams is the telephone. So it really is best to let your answering machine do some work for you. Only pick up calls from your friends and relatives. Let the other ones go to your answering machine. You can listen carefully and make a decision on whether or not to return that call.
Kathy, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise with our viewers.
Thank you.
All right, stay with us. We'll be right back.